Live from Orlando, Florida, you're now listening to the OZone Podcast, the voice of Orlando Magic fans. Join us every week for a unique fan perspective on all of the latest Magic news and updates. The show starts now.
Welcome back to another episode of the OZone Podcast, brought to you by DraftKings and part of the Basketball Podcast Network. We're your hosts, Al, myself, Anthony. Today we have a very special guest joining us, host of In the Zone weekday 3 to 6 p.m. on 969 The Game, Orlando Magic radio analyst Brandon Kravitz. What's up, man?
How you guys doing tonight?
Good to join you. Good. Doing fantastic, man. Preseason is over. Finally get some real NBA basketball coming on. Before we get into talking NBA basketball, talking about the Orlando Magic, Brandon, I mean, let's get a quick introduction from you. Who are you and how did you get into radio?
Well, I graduated from UCF back in 2010 with a bachelor's degree in psychology. My original goal was to be a sports psychologist, and I just didn't have this scholastic dedication to stick to that for the extra 4 years. It took me long enough to get my bachelor's. So I got out. I was a little bit lost, and I thought, what am I going to do next? And it just sort of hit me. Conversations with friends, interests at the time. I was in love with sports talk radio, really had grown an affinity for it, and I thought, why not just do that? And so I got into it. I went to a broadcasting school, got a quick certificate that landed me an internship with the radio station that I work for now. And 10 years later, here I am, a host of an afternoon show, lucky enough to work with the Orlando Magic. And I'm glad that I chose this path. It seems to have worked out, at least so far.
That's amazing. You're the first media person that we've interviewed that is local from Orlando. Or did you just go
I'm
to
not
UCF?
really from Orlando. I went to UCF. I was originally born in Baltimore, Maryland. My entire extended family still lives up there. My immediate family, we moved down to South Florida in the Fort Lauderdale area. That's where I spent the majority of my childhood, so like 7 to 17. And then once I graduated high school, I came up to Orlando and been here ever since. So that's sort of my journey to O-Town. So I haven't been a lifelong Magic fan. It wasn't until later in my life when I started to adopt this team as my own. And then now I work with the team. And so it's like a whole other level of dedication, you know?
Oh, yeah. It reminds me of who do we have the other day? I completely forgot his name right now. Was it Jake?
Jake Chapman.
Jake
that's
Chapman.
The guy I work with. Yeah, that's my right-hand man, or I'm his right-hand man, however it works.
Completely slid for a second, but he told me the same thing. You know, he's from Ohio, and then he moved to Orlando, and now the Magic, became his go-to team, and he roots for them. We were joking that the paycheck comes from the Magic, so naturally you got to root for the Magic.
Right.
But Brandon,
his paycheck actually says Magic on it. Mine, I'm more of like an affiliate kind of.
Gotcha.
My paycheck says iHeartMedia, but either way, the love is there, and I think whenever you work with a team. As I'm learning now, is just you have another level of investment, and you get to know these guys, the coaches, the personnel, the behind the scenes girls and guys, and you just want to see everybody succeed, and so that's where it makes it that much harder, because you get those losses, like you can't just brush them off. You got to show up for work the next day.
Right now, did you start following the team before the paycheck?
I did. Yeah, this is going to sound very bandwagonish, but I probably didn't become a real fan of the team until right around 2009. But I was interested in the team, like those Steve Francis, Kelvin Cato, Cuttino Mobley years. I mean, I've always been an NBA fan, so being in a city where that team was in our backyard, it was different than when I lived in Fort Lauderdale. The Miami Heat played in my quote unquote backyard, but they were like an hour plus away. And I went to like 2 Heat games growing up. So I didn't have that same connection. I was sort of lost. I grew up a Chicago Bulls fan, like every other kid in the 90s, because of Michael Jordan, and then just bounced around. Then it was like, I followed the 76ers because of AI. And it's sort of like the modern day NBA fan, where you're not so much attached to a team, but you find yourself attached to players. The Magic were really the first NBA team that I ever considered myself a fan of, no matter who was on the roster. And that really didn't happen until Dwight Howard came to town.
That's an interesting point, because Al over here is from up north as well. He's more from the Boston-ish area. So somehow he ended up rooting for the Celtics for some time period, turned into Golden State Warriors, and then the Magic. You know, it's funny how when you become local and you really start watching the team, you find yourself becoming more of a fan because you have more access to it. And I think that part of the reason why that we have Orlando the Magic is still a really, really brand new team compared to other teams in the NBA. And that's when when we go to games, we still get a lot of the fan bases from, other teams that kind of, they take control of the arena a little bit.
Well, and you have bandwagon fans. It's just sort of the nature of this league more so than others, where you have people that follow players. It was amazing when LeBron was on the Heat. There were more Heat fans than ever before. And all of a sudden, I remember one of the last times I was at the arena when you could pack the arena, and Golden State was in town. I was like, since when were there so many people from the Bay Area that live in Orlando?
That's right.
It's a Steph Curry thing,
Yeah,
it's not hard to figure that out. You go now, I bet there will be a ton of Brooklyn Nets fans this year at the Amway Center. So that's just sort of the nature of the league. But yeah, if you can, I mean, I always like having a team that I feel like I can follow, that is mine, that you have that connection to. I grew up a Baltimore Orioles fan, so that's my Major League Baseball team because that's what I grew up with initially. Then I went down to South Florida. There was no NFL in Baltimore at that time. The Baltimore Colts had left, and the Ravens hadn't gotten there yet. So when I went down to South Florida, I adopted the Dolphins. For whatever reason, I never took to the Heat. I didn't dislike them. I just never I never identified with them. And it wasn't until I got to Orlando where I was like, I think I might have an NBA team. When the losses start to hurt, that's when you know.
That's right.
That's a good point, because I mean, let's be honest. How many New Jersey Nets fans, were really bred in Orlando to where they do pack up, the Amway Center? How many Golden State Warriors? Nobody cared about the Golden State Warriors. I don't care how much you like the We Believe team. As much as I enjoyed watching them, there wasn't enough to be able to like really populate the city of Orlando to where, half of the arena is all dressed in yellow. So I definitely agree with that sentiment. Now, I want to ask you, because I feel like this offseason, there's already been a lot of natural NBA drama. And a lot of that is coming from Ben Simmons. Now, there was a recent report from Jake Fisher that said Cleveland, Detroit, Houston, Indiana, Minnesota, Portland, Sacramento, San Antonio, and Toronto are continuing to talk to Philadelphia about a potential Ben Simmons trade. One team name that we didn't hear from that is the Orlando Magic. So from your perspective, does it bother you that you don't hear the Orlando Magic name in there in terms of at least inquiring? Or are you really happy that the Magic are just staying away from that altogether?
I mean, I personally I think maybe it's profession based. I would love for the Magic to be involved in discussions like that. It makes sports talk radio more interesting. If a team like the Magic is involved, you really have to force that discussion and contrive it, because we know that it's not realistic. That's just not the mode of operation for John Hammond and Jeff Weltman. So it's not going to happen. I'm sure that Ben Simmons isn't dying to get to the Orlando Magic so that he can be part of a rebuilding roster with a bunch of young guys. I don't think that that's what he desires. But yeah, I mean, I would like them to be in that sort of discussion. I like Ben Simmons as a player. I think asking him to be somebody who's the dominant ball handler, that's even asking him to get a shot at this point in his career, that's not who he is. He doesn't need to be that guy. Somebody needs to figure out how to put that man at power forward and just let him fly to the rim and defend people. I've said this on the air before. If you were going to have this pie in the sky scenario, and I like Jonathan Isaac individually, but I would trade Jonathan Isaac for Ben Simmons.
Ooh.
Because they're basically the same player. They're both what you're hoping to get when they're on the floor is an elite defensive player. Mm-hmm. Ben Simmons has already been an NBA Defensive Player of the Year candidate. You're hoping, and it looks like it's more likely than not, that if Jonathan Isaac can stay on the court, he'll get to that point. But Ben Simmons is already there, and he has star power, and he doesn't get hurt like J.I. does. And so I want to see J.I. come along and all of those things. But if you had that conversation, what kind of names would you have to come up with in order for Ben Simmons to be one where you're getting him back? Somebody like Jonathan Isaac would have to be in the discussion. And I just want guys that stay on the floor. You know, this injury stuff, I don't know how much longer I can handle this, emotionally.
You start to hope and feel like this is it. This is going to be like the last time the injuries do happen. Like I have that hope. Is that reality? Probably not. We're hoping for it, but we really don't know. And it feels like, Jonathan Isaac should have been back a long time ago. We have, I want to say, was it you that mentioned that, Devin Kennedy had a really bad injury and he's already back in some capacity. So that's an interesting point, because when it comes to Ben Simmons, you have two sides of the field. People that say, well, he's an all-star caliber. He's his first NBA type of player. And he's someone that instantly would be the best player on the Orlando Magic roster. I think the fan in me also, I don't know what I would be willing to give up for Ben Simmons. I don't know if I have the heart to be able to part ways with a Cole Anthony and RJ Hampton, anything to really make that work.
I don't know that I can do
what
that.
We have just yet. I see the concerns. You bring a really good point about Jonathan Isaac with the injuries, and you're hoping that he becomes a first team all defense. But Ben Simmons is kind of that now. Do you think that this would be, no matter where Ben Simmons goes, do you think that he just has to give up that point guard position? That that was already tried in Philadelphia, didn't work. You need to be able to have a point guard that is able to shoot and willing to shoot. Do you think that point guard position for him is done?
Yeah, he's got to give that up. And that has to be part of the equation with him, because he'll never find success equivalent to what the expectation is for him if he's continued to ask to be the primary ball handler. In today's NBA, if you handle the ball more than anybody else, you better be able to jack it from wherever you're standing. That's today's league. It's like in the NFL. Like, if you're not be able to heave the ball down the field 50 yards, I don't know how long and healthy your career can be. That's just the nature of the position. LeBron's learned how to do it. Damian Lillard does it. Trae Young's doing it. Steph Curry. The best in the game at doing that. Giannis is the exception to the rule. And he tries to jack up threes, and he's better at it than Ben Simmons, and he doesn't need to do that. He's so great at everything else, he can overcome it. Ben Simmons isn't that guy. And for the record, Giannis isn't a point guard, so I guess he's out of the discussion for that reason anyway. But right. Ben Simmons just, I feel like, I don't know. I can't tell if it's he doesn't know exactly what he is or if his coaches don't know exactly what he is, but they need, in whatever new scenario he finds himself in, they need to get their heads together and realize this is a great, talented NBA player. He is just sitting there when I've had the ability, and it's been a couple of years now, to sit courtside with my role with the Orlando Magic and watch these guys. There are very few people in the league that are as physically impressive as Ben Simmons. This guy is special. So when I hear slander about this guy can't play and all of that, I'm like, you're just judging him off the things he can't do. He is so exceptional at the things he can do. So let's just focus on that. And it just comes down to coaching at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think the key there is, Brandon, what you mentioned is he needs to stick to a position. If it is a power forward position, stick to that. Again, in an Orlando Magic scenario, if he were to come here, that's where I could see him kind of fitting in. Hey, as a power forward, stick to that. And again, play as a Giannis type of player where you just go to the basket and attack and defend on the other side. But the problem is, up to this day, we haven't seen that. They keep trying to push this agenda. Hey, you're a point guard. You have to shoot the three. And that's quite not happening, unfortunately, for him. But quickly transitioning here to the Orlando Magic and the preseason. What are your thoughts so far on the team so far this preseason? How have they looked? Here, as we're a week away from the start of the new season.
Yeah, I think I see a lot of the things that have people excited and encouraged about this roster. There's a lot of energy. These guys are into every moment. The exuberance on the sideline for these players. You know, you watch a guy like Daughton hit that last second shot, and you would have thought in just watching the bench that they just won the Eastern Conference Finals. It was awesome. Yep. That's the type of thing that I think is going to, and in listening to the reaction from the crowd, I think they're feeding off of that. All of that needs to work in tandem because that's going to be what makes this season special. We know that there's a ceiling for how many games this team can win, but I think you're seeing early on in the preseason, I'd like to see a little bit more from some of these guys. But at the same time, it doesn't matter until you get to real regular season games. What I want to see more than anything else, they're already showing me, which is these guys they play hard. Jalen Suggs is diving on the floor in the preseason to save balls. Are you kidding me? That's the guy that we have for our future. I mean, that's all you can ask for with a young team. So they've got that. Jamal Mosley's out here ringing the bell, and I like what I see so far.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned that because I've been to the last 2 games at home, and I don't know about you, but the crowd has been as electric as I've heard them, even during the regular season last year, or actually not last year because of COVID, but the year before that. It's been fun. Like those fourth quarters where they're making a comeback, the crowd gets into it. Like you mentioned, they feed off that energy, the hustle plays, slam dunks. They're averaging like, I don't even know, 8 to 9 dunks a game. That wasn't the case with the last team. So I think that alone is going to drive a lot of fans to come to games, even though, like you mentioned, we may not win a lot of games, and that's understandable. But again, that energy, and they're fun to watch. That's the most important thing, I think, for this young team.
Absolutely. I mean, and that's what it's all about. I think that if you're a fan and you're wondering, okay, am I just in for another season where this team's going to have a bad record and they're going to end up in the lottery? That's not the way to look at this year. This year is different if you allow it to be as a fan. If you want to be negative, then nobody's going to stop you, and you'll have plenty of reasons to point and say, see, I told you so, this team's not that good. But it's a likable, lovable bunch. And as long as they're walking in the right direction, as long as this team feels like, okay, they're getting better throughout the season, and you have a couple of nuggets throughout the year, pardon the pun for Denver, a couple throughout the course of the season where you feel like, okay, that was fun. A couple of wins in a row, a win against the Lakers team when you didn't expect it. All of a sudden, even in a loss, Jalen Suggs drops 32. These little things can be what you hang your hat on. And when those moments happen, kind of like Cole Anthony hitting those buzzer beaters last year, it just makes the season so fun when you feel like as a fan, you're part of it. And if you're part of it at that ground level, just imagine how exciting that's going to be when it does really turn into wins. But in order to truly appreciate that as a fan, you got to be in for moments like this. And I think that this is that year. If somebody's been sitting on the fence and you're not sure, it almost sounds like I don't get a kickback for season tickets, for the record, but I really do. It just feels different this year. This team's not going to be as good as it was in the last couple, but they're going to be a whole lot more fun.
Yeah, they're going to be really fun. And the part that makes it so interesting is that fun can literally come out of 9, 10 different players on the roster. Now, when we take a look at the young guys that we have, or just the roster in its entirety, who would you say benefited the most from preseason play?
I think it's got to be Mo Bamba.
Yeah, 100%.
My goodness. He's showing me
100%.
stuff I'd never seen before. These turnaround jumpers. He's added an offensive repertoire. This guy's clearly been putting in the work. And when you read between the lines of what the criticisms from Steve Clifford when he was the head coach, with Jeff Weltman and John Hammond, I had a conversation with John Hammond where I asked him, is this a make or break year for Mo Bamba? And his direct answer to me was, that's on Mo. That to me that tells a whole story of that means it's been on Mo. He hasn't been putting the proper work in. Conditioning has been an issue. We haven't been sure if last year, if you blame that on him getting COVID or what, but it just seems like reading between the lines that he hadn't really put the work in to be great. And you watch the little things that he's gotten better at, and he's bulked up too. So you can tell he's been hitting the gym. I just love what I'm seeing from him. If he's able to put that together, honestly, the only thing standing in his way is I'm in love with what I'm seeing from Wendell Carter too. So let them battle it out. Coal makes diamonds. Is that, or pressure makes diamonds? That's what it is. Yeah. I like those two battling it out.
Yeah. And it's a lot of different things. It could be, because I'm sure Mo hears it all the time. There's so much talk about his motor, back against the wall, contract year, new coach system, not whatever, because there was never really anything confirmed whether or not there was any bad blood between him and Steve Clifford. He gave Steve Clifford recognition during the summer league and said that was a big part of why he was participating in any capacity. So I hope that it's not driven by those things specifically. I hope that it's really made a turn, because from what we've seen, it's a completely different player. He looks like he cares. And before, whether he did or didn't, it didn't reflect that way on the court.
Yeah, and sometimes this level of criticism for a young player is unfair, but you're always going to be compared in any walk of life to your relative competition. And the guys that were drafted right there in front of him have been full-blown superstars for a couple of years. Luka Doncic and Trae Young, there are no questions about what those guys are. And Mo was taken one spot after. And so when you see that it takes some time for him to come around, I think that fans are right to be frustrated there, to question, well, how come our guy isn't coming along as quickly? Where you're not, forget about, are you a superstar, which those guys are you even worthy of being rostered by this basketball team in the future? That's been the question. It looks like Mo Bamba's answering the bell on that, and I hope that it persists throughout the entire year. Preseason's one thing. When you do it, you're trying new things, and it's worked for him. But in actually applying that to the regular season, I don't want to get too over my skis here, but I love what I see from Mo Bamba. He, above anybody else, has really shocked me in what he's brought to the table.
Yeah, I mean, especially on the defensive end. I mean, the last 2 games, 5 blocks each game. Yesterday, 4 blocks just in the first half. So you start to wonder, if he can get 25, 30 minutes a night, what would that look like? Again, from the defensive end, it's going to make us tremendous, especially when you add later on Chuma Okeke and J.I. to the rotation. Again, 2 great defenders, and Jalen Suggs and Markelle. So defensively, which is the identity the team wants to build on, we have some guys that are showing great promise right now. But speaking quickly about Chuma Okeke, what are your thoughts on the fact that he missed preseason, unfortunately, hasn't been able to play due to that hip injury? Do you think that sets him back? Do you think we should be concerned about that? Or do you think he should be back and fit right in when he gets back?
I'm always concerned when it comes to Magic injuries, so it's hard for me to just brush that one off. It's a hip injury. I don't know if I can relate it to anything else that he's been through in the last couple of years. He missed that first season after tearing his ACL at Auburn, and he was just kind of a redshirt year. He came in. He battled with a couple of injuries. I thought he played really well. There were some moments there where you're like, I think the Magic might have something in Chuma Okeke. You saw flashes of, and I struggle with this because he's such a great player, but there were flashes of Kawhi Leonard in the type of game, just stylistically. When he looks good, you're like, I see a little bit of that. If you can get even 50% of that player, you've got a great player on your hands in the NBA, because Kawhi is just that dude. So, yeah, I mean, I'm concerned because I've just been burned so many times with these injuries. So hopefully this is something he can bounce back from. You want to have as many guys as you can ready to go at the start of the year. This is such a pivotal season for the Magic to do those things that I talked about, to start taking the steps in the right direction. I don't want to see anything this year that resembles tanking. I was fine with it at the back end of last year. I thought it was understandable. Strong draft. You're going in a new direction. What I can't stand in the NBA is tanking multiple seasons. I think that really turns off a fan base. And so if injuries were to start piling up, I think you'd see a slight change in direction. I don't want to see any of that. And Chuma Okeke is a big part of having that arrow point in the right direction.
Yeah, and speaking of tanking, just last season, towards the end, it was brutal, because as a fan, you're watching, and as someone that covers the team, you're hoping, you want them to win, but you're hoping that they lose, but you're hoping that they at least battle out to make the game at least competitive. So it was really a really conflicting long span of watching Orlando Magic basketball. So I agree. I'm happy with Jalen Suggs, and I really hope that he's able to contribute the way that everyone's expecting. And I want them to compete. If we end up in the lottery, we end up in the lottery, but forcing our way into taking something that I really do also hope that, we avoid this upcoming season. Now, looking forward to this season, I'm going to have you put your head coaching hat on, make you coach most for a few moments. Who are you starting? What is your starting lineup as of right now? First game's coming up. Who are you putting on the floor?
Well, Jalen Suggs, I've been saying this all along. He's got to be my primary ball handler. And whoever ends up healthy as the season progresses, I think that is so important to the fabric of this team. I think he's got to be the floor general. That's what makes him special. So that's what I want to see. And I want to see it right out of the gate. We know what this season is. So there's no reason to waste any time. And he can ball too. He's such a crisp passer, great decision maker. So I've got him at the 1. Cole Anthony is playing that sidecar at the 2. I've got Franz Wagner, not in love with what I saw in the preseason. But again, if we're trying to get the ball rolling here, that guy's got to be out on the floor. Assuming that Chuma Okeke is good to go, I would have him at the 4 until Jonathan Isaac can come back. And then I would have Wendell Carter at the 5. That would be my starting lineup for the Orlando Magic out of the gate. I was thinking about getting Terrence Ross in that starting lineup just because I'd like to see it, but he's such a good 6-man. When you need that pop off the bench, that's his specialty. So why mess with something? Sure, you could put him at the 2 or the 3, but in that starting lineup, but why mess with something that works, and that clearly works for the Magic?
Yeah, so, I personally like the lineup. The only adjustment I would make would be with Franz Wagner. I would put Gary Harris in there just to have a veteran on there that can really help and support with the ball handling and the scoring. I myself also was not impressed with what I've seen in preseason or summer league, and I think that he's just going to need additional time. Also considered, I really like what I saw with Wendell and Mo Bamba. We're going to talk a little bit more a little bit later about them independently, but just them together on the floor, I really enjoyed watching them together. It would make it a little more difficult in terms of rotations. You would obviously have to use Rolo or Mo a little bit more off the bench, but I really like what I saw. If Okeke isn't ready to be on the floor, he would be one that I would want to be in there. Mo Bamba and Wendell holding down the big man.
Yeah, that just feels more experimental to me than something that could actually work game in, game out. I remember Steve Clifford would toy with that in the preseason with Mo, and this looks like it could be a different Mo. So, maybe I need to throw out those preconceived notions because he looks like a much better player. But he would toy with that in the preseason and play those guys together, and I was always intrigued by it. That just doesn't seem like it's Mo's natural position, and he still needs to find his footing. We saw many years of Aaron Gordon being played at all types of positions, and I felt like that kind of held back his progression. So I'm not against it because I'm entertained by it, and if it works, it'll look really good out on the floor. I just don't know that it will. So having a strong Mo Bamba backing up Wendell Carter, or even pushing him, I mean, who knows? Maybe throughout the season that ends up getting flip-flopped. I like your Gary Harris call, though. I think I'm trying to force the Franz Wagner thing into existence. It's like, okay, he struggled, but let's get him more reps.
He's waiting for the real thing. That's all right. It is. He's waiting for the real game.
21% from 3-point range. Brutal.
Yeah, that's got to improve.
Yeah.
Now, Brandon, when it comes to the total number of wins you expect the Magic to get this upcoming season, give me your prediction. What do you think that will look like for us?
So I went to Vegas to check it out. 22.5 is the over-under, and I'm going to take the over. I think this team has 30 wins in them. If you go back to last year, I think the upside for this Magic team is the 10 spot. So you get right into that play-in. That's the best-case scenario to me. Anything above that would be mind-blowing. But even that, I mean, that you talk about what would feel like an extremely successful season. In order to do that, now last year that team had 33 wins. That was in a 72-game season. So if you're just messing with the numbers a little bit, I think the Magic most likely falls short of that. I don't think they get into the playoffs, but I do think they're fighting for it. I think they're there. I think they're going to string together enough wins throughout the season. They're going to have a couple of games where they look really good and they can beat teams like Cleveland and Detroit, and they're going to surprise some teams. I think they end up in that 30 range, just outside, wishing that they could get in. That's the most likely scenario.
And I think you'll see a lot of teams too, like the Lakers, Brooklyn, who might give their stars the night off when they see the Magic on the schedule. And that's a perfect scenario where on the schedule, you may have it as an L, but then you go and find out the Magic pulled off the win in that game. So I think, again, like you mentioned, I've been saying it all off season so far. The Vegas odds, 22.5. I'm going over on that. I know it'll be tough sometimes. I get it's a young team. We may look bad and go on a losing streak here and there. But I think overall, this team, especially if Markelle and G.I. come back healthy and stay healthy, we'll surprise some people.
I mean, think about it, Al. If you have a team that's going down to Miami and then plays the Magic on whether it's a back-to-back or even if they get a night off, and they're ready to go back home, and they're veteran. There's a good team, but they're veteran-laden team, and they come in just trying to waltz through the Magic. That's where that energy, that infectious energy that this team has, they'll come out and punch you right in the mouth, because it's almost like this team operates like they don't even know any better. They don't know that they're young and they're supposed to be bad. I don't see them playing that way. I think we'll see it, and I hope that they don't. I hope that they continue to sort of emanate this youth, this naivety almost to how they're supposed to be rebuilding. And I think in moments like that, those are going to be the games that I'm talking about, where a Magic fan can go, man, that felt good. I don't know what it means in the long run, but tonight that felt really good, and the right guys shined in the process. Those type of nights are the ones I'm excited about.
Yeah, in our last podcast, I used an analogy that I see the Magic being the 18, 19-year-olds at LA Fitness that, they're playing way harder than they should be.
Exactly.
Against these older players, these older teams, they're kind of like, what are you guys doing? Like, relax a little bit. Because there's nothing that drives me more crazy than playing against these teams that don't respect us. They come in here, they go out the night before, they go to sleep later, they don't take us serious. And I feel like we've lost that respect across the board for a really, really long time. But I do think that if that does happen, that you're right. We have enough manpower and enough youth and athleticism that, we could really damage a few teams that want to try and take advantage. Now, earlier today, you also had a poll that you put on your Twitter feed, asking your audience if they're team Bamba or team Carter. Now, taking off your Mo's hat and now putting your general manager hat on, contract extensions. I mean, that's going to be a really big talk for these two. You collectively, like, what do you think? Who should the Magic offer that contract extension to? Who should the Magic kind of put their focus on more for that 5 spot?
That's the fun of this season, is that I'll answer the question now, but if you're the actual general manager of this team, that's the kind of thing that you're watching for this year. Those guys need to go out and earn that, because right now, if you just go back and watch Wendell with the Bulls, and then what he was able to do last year in limited action with the Magic, then compare that to Mo Bamba and his upside coming out of Texas. I mean, how could you really be that much more confident about one moving forward than the other? Wendell Carter's been a better NBA player to this point, but he hasn't been a great NBA player in his own right. I think that he just looks like a more polished pro at this point in his career. Mo Bamba has flashed more upside and has also shown you longer lulls in his young NBA career. So that's why right now, if I had the pen in my hand and I had to sign it today, it would be Wendell Carter, because I feel like he's already a decent NBA player. I don't think Mo's there yet, even though his ceiling is way higher. So that would be my answer now, but that's the beauty of this season, is watching how all of that plays out.
And I'm 100% on board with that. I've been saying, people keep saying, lock up Wendell right now. I'm all about let them both battle it out all season. You never know what could happen.
No reason not to.
Just let it play out. You still have them as restricted free agents. So if anything happens, you can match any offers in the offseason. Just see how it plays out and then make that decision at the end.
Absolutely. One of the things that's going to curry favor with this team that they hadn't had, it was one of the reasons, outside of just getting a better draft pick and all of that I was not just okay with, completely supported them blowing up the team in the middle of last year, is that they were paying a lot of money to be average. Mm-hmm. You cannot do that in the NBA. You can be average, but you better not be paying to be average. The Magic had one of the highest overall team salaries in the NBA, and what were they getting for it? They're having to fight to get into the playoffs. If that's your ceiling and you're paying for the ceiling, then you can't live in that space. And that's where they got in trouble, was they were like, oh, okay, well, he's decent, let's pay him. And they did it with Evan, and they did it with AG, and they overpaid for Vooch in some ways, even though they got a lot back for him. So that one worked out. So that's the kind of thing you have to be careful with, because otherwise, if you end up paying these guys too early, all they end up becoming is decent trade pieces in the future. I think we're all kind of over that. We just want good players, and we want to be able to be players in free agency, which the Magic haven't been able to do in years because they haven't had the cap space available for it.
Now, looking at the NBA, so NBA.com came out with, their polls, and they, in regard to rookie of the year, they have Jalen Green at 47% chance of winning rookie of the year, Cade Cunningham 40%, and then we have Jalen Suggs at just 7%. Do you agree with that assessment, or do you really think that Jalen Suggs has the opportunity to really, catch up to these guys and really take that title for his own?
I think he's got a chance just because I think he might win more games than both of those guys. So if that ends up being a factor, and he's a big reason as to why that's happening, and I think he's a better defensive player than those guys in terms of just like hustle. Cade Cunningham's pretty good, so maybe I'm underselling that. But Jalen Suggs has it all. And so if he puts it together and this team gets to that 30-ish win mark, I could see him being a factor. With that being said, I'm not blind to how sensational Jalen Green is as an offensive talent, and Houston is going to hand him the ball and say, have at it, kid. So he's probably going to step into the NBA averaging like 25 points per game. It's his award to lose, in my opinion. I think that Jalen Suggs will be battling it out with Cade Cunningham for that number 2 spot. But if Jalen Green is healthy, I don't see how he doesn't end up winning this. He's just too good on offense.
That's right. I think like you mentioned, Jalen is going to have the ball in his hands plenty and shoot the ball plenty. And again, as long as he's healthy, it's going to be tough. Unless, like you mentioned, if Jalen Suggs some way, somehow get the Magic to 30 wins, much more than Houston, they're playing for the play-in tournament, then that may change some things. And hopefully that's the case. That's what
and health could be a factor too.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys need to stay healthy. Sometimes rookies, they can hit that wall, and then miss some time. And so hopefully the Magic aren't the team that's dealing with that. That's been part of the theme of this pod, I guess.
Let's hope not, because we dealt with that plenty last season. We paid our dues.
I'm gonna burn some incense and do some prayer dances or something, whatever you need to do.
But you know what? That's one of the things that concerns me the most about Jalen Suggs is that he is a hustler and he has that football mentality. But I see him on the ground too, way more often than I would like, and it feels like every single time my heart is dropping because there's that risk that something off may happen.
But you can't take that out of him because that's part of what makes him special. So that's true. It is tough, man, because he's a gamer, he's a grinder, but you can see it. You're like, I need you to slow down a little bit just because you're putting yourself in danger. He puts himself in some precarious positions.
Yeah, I don't want my quarterback to run. Like keep passing from a distance.
You got to slide, at least slide. Run out of bounds, that kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure. Brandon, what would be your one bold prediction for this Orlando Magic team? If you were to, first thing that comes to mind, what would be something that you think would surprise a lot of people?
So I'm thinking to that third preseason game against San Antonio. Jalen Suggs had the ball in his hand, and you could see it like that moment playing out several times throughout the year, and then he gets the ball stolen, and it didn't pan out. I actually think that that's going to turn out to be a positive, because I think they're going to go back to that well time and time again, and I could see Jalen Suggs with not one, not two, but 3 game-winning shots over the course of the season, and Cole Anthony will have to relinquish his crown of the buzzer beater king on the Orlando Magic. And just the way that this team responds to a moment like that, and seeing the way that Doughton was treated and showered with praise in that moment from his teammates, just imagine when it's Jalen Suggs in the regular season with all of the expectations and everything that comes with being the number 5 overall pick in the future of this franchise. Not only is the arena going to go crazy, but man, that sideline is going to lose it. And I could see that happening multiple times this year because he's a gamer, and we saw it happen at Gonzaga. That bank shot forever etched into every sports fan's mind. That's just who he is. And so when it matters the most, I think he's hitting those shots. And I think that'd be my bold prediction, is that happens multiple times this year.
Every single Suggs game-winning shot, I need him to stand on top of the scorer's table. That just needs to be
every
signature.
Single one.
Signature.
Oh, yeah. Who's not moving out of the way for that? Of course.
Everybody.
Let's go.
Now, Brandon, jumping into our overtime segment, where we're going to just throw out a couple questions out to you. It's going to be rapid fire. So you just say the first thing that comes to mind. What would you say, or what team would you say is your all-time favorite Orlando Magic team?
2010 It was the year after the NBA Finals trip. If I'm just forgetting about what the result of the season was and going through the rigors of an NBA regular season, that Vince Carter, the fact that they got Vince Carter, I thought was the coolest thing on the planet. And I thought he was really going to put them over the top. I had so much fun. They just went to the finals. I was all in. So that team to me stands above the rest.
Back in the day, I used to work at Best Buy. This is around that exact same time. We had just acquired Vince Carter. And Vince Carter had came into that Best Buy and he had an issue with his iPad. And we took the iPad to the back because I worked in the Geek Squad area. And we were finally able to get it kicked on. And when we kicked it on, I saw the Larry O'Brien trophy on his iPad. And I was like, oh, that's it. It's a sign. It's a wrap. Championship is coming to Orlando. We got Vince Carter. It didn't end up that way, but I just remember like having Vince Carter on that team. And Vince Carter's Al's guy. It's his favorite player of all time. Got Vince Carter tattooed on him.
That's right.
He doesn't, but I know that if he did get a tattoo, he'd think about it.
Probably.
But definitely an epic team. Sure.
Honestly, my biggest takeaway from that story is I didn't realize that iPads were around in 2010.
Yeah.
I didn't realize they'd been in circulation that long.
They were probably like $1,500 at the time.
First gen.
Yeah. It was an actual stone tablet.
That was back in the day when we had iPods. People still use iPods.
Yeah.
Next question for you, Brandon, here. Favorite Magic memory during your time covering the team?
So I have two that I'd like to share. One was when Nick Vucevic was announced as an all-star in 2018. That was a really special moment. Just watching the way that the crowd reacted, his team, it meant so much to him. And he was such a likable guy. He was such a genuine dude. I mean, that team wasn't as exuberant and young and energetic as this team is, but there were a lot of really just genuine individuals. And Nick Vucevic was the head of that table. So to see him get his due when the Magic as an organization just weren't, that was really special being there for that. The other one, and I wouldn't call this a favorite, but just memorable, was I went to the Amway Center the day that we found out that Kobe Bryant passed away. They were playing the Clippers that night, and just chills up and down. Every NBA fan, there was the building before anybody even walked in it just felt different. Everybody was somber. And then the 24-second violation on both sides. I'll never forget that.
Yeah,
I had to rewrite my entire pregame show. I had it all prepped and ready to go. I was sitting back and watching the Pro Bowl. All my work is done. And then we get the news, and I just crumpled it up and threw it out. Because it's like, I'm not going to come on and be like, hey, Magic Clippers. You know, you just forget it, and you just go into NBA fan mode, talk about what Kobe Bryant meant. And I wish it didn't happen, but as far as just memorable moments, that's certainly one of them.
I remember when that moment occurred. It was TMZ that first reported it. I remember Googling like CNN, Channel 13. You're like, I research every news channel I can possibly find to make sure that, you know, the news was legitimate. And till this day, it still feels off. The NBA had that what was it? NBA Ave, that the commercial that they have celebrating the 75 years, and you know, you had Devin Booker kind of stop at the mural of Kobe Bryant, and still like watching that was still rough.
Yeah. I mean, I remember I was actually looking at Twitter at the moment that originally came out. I happened to be thumbing through, and I still remember up in the right corner where it tells you how long ago the tweet was sent. It said 1 second. Wow. And I was just like, this can't be real. I mean, it was what everybody thought. That kind of thing, you just never expect it. So that was a big gut punch. And nobody on the floor, nobody in the arena, nobody really wanted to be there that night. But you just, whether you were a fan or you were working the game or you were playing in the game, there was a commitment there. Like I already planned to do it, or it was a really weird feeling. I've never really been a part of anything like that before.
Now, Brandon, normally we would ask, what is your all-time favorite Orlando Magic uniform? And we've already gotten to the point that, all right, everyone really likes the pinstripes. We're at that point. What would you say is your least favorite Orlando Magic uniform?
That's a great question. Because I mean, we all like the same one.
Yeah.
We want the mid-90s. I like the black ones personally with the white stripes. Just picture the number 32 on it. I think my least favorite was probably the Tracy McGrady years. I don't know what you would call that.
What's it, the Stars?
It was the Stars, and they also had the jerseys that just like put plain Orlando on them. There was like no flavor to it at all. The Stars were okay. The ones where there was just nothing plain to it. They just said, you know what? Forget personality. We don't need it. We're just gonna write the city's name in white.
They had a white one and a blue one, and all they had was like a little star in the collar, and that was
terrible.
That was it.
Terrible. And it's crazy because like I don't know if it's just because I grew up in the 90s, so I'm so nostalgic with it, but those 90s NBA jerseys, you can't touch them in sports.
Exactly.
Rockets, Jazz, the Magic. I mean, it was just up and down the league. Everybody just had these crazy cool jerseys. The Seattle Supersonics.
That was back when they would put their mascots on their uniform. You had
the Raptors,
big old
with the dinosaur
in the middle. Yep. It'd be weird if the Magic did like a Magic Dragon on their uniform.
Yeah,
I'm glad they didn't adopt that. That wouldn't be good.
No.
Wouldn't be good at all. my least favorite, I have two. That one that we just discussed. And then I really, really dislike the sleeved Adidas jerseys. Like the Victor, the gray
ones,
Yeah, I call them the Oladipo jerseys because he's the only one that I really remember wearing them. Hated those.
It is funny how we identify these jerseys with the specific players.
Yeah,
like 100%. Shaq jerseys, T-Mac jerseys.
Well, what's funny is that when we were talking about that jersey, the first player that came to mind was Kelvin Cato. Yeah, I remember Kelvin Cato wearing that uniform.
Yeah, I don't know why that is, but yeah, he comes to mind too with that one. And then I think some of the city edition jerseys, people haven't been crazy about. I think I've liked them probably more than the average, but I don't know that we've quite hit. I don't think we've hit a home run yet. I think we've got a couple singles and doubles with them.
What I've liked that they've done with the cities is using the secondary logo and just made it really, really big. That I really did like. They did that with the space uniforms. I wasn't crazy with the space idea. Then they came out with the first orange city editions that I didn't like at all. And then they gave us the pinstripes, which I thought it went in the right direction, but wasn't executed the way I was hoping.
I'm glad you brought up I forgot about the space ones. Can I put them at the top of my list now? Yeah, I hated
as your most hated. Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
If you said this is the one you have to wear for the rest of your life, you don't get to change. That would be the last one I would pick. I'd rather take the plain one. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that. That's how much I disliked it. Is I actually forgot it happened.
And it's funny because what have we done? Like 4 city edition uniforms, and I feel like they come up with an idea, but they only put like a little bit of it, and then their second year they go all out. So the first one with the space was just like a little bit of stars, and the second one was like the whole entire damn jersey was stars, and then the first orange one was just a little bit of orange, and then it was just full blown orange all across the board. So now I'm nervous and also excited to see what they come up with this November.
My idea, which nobody will listen to, is I want one that kind of has like almost looks like a cityscape, but it's a roller coaster. You know, I think that would give us an Orlando feel. See, I feel like you're right. Like there's a little bit of we're just dipping our toe in it. I think they need to go all in. I mean, Minnesota was like, oh, we're the city of Prince. So we're gonna give you purple rain jerseys. It's so over the top and ridiculous, but it was awesome. That's what these are about. It's not about kind of being about your city. This is about leaning in and being over the top. Something like that, or something representing the pride, not the soccer team, but just the diversity in the city, something like that. I think that would really hit the mark, and you just go all out with it. That's what they're all about.
Man, but imagine having a uniform where you have roller coasters and Disney on the exact same jersey. That's really diving all in. But you know who adopted that idea? The Knights, the UCF basketball, but they have it on their court.
Exactly.
So they kind of have
That's
like
probably where I got
outline.
the idea from.
Yeah,
I love that.
That would be sick, because who else did it? Was it Dallas? Was it the Mavs that did it previously? There was another NBA team that had the skyline, but I think that would definitely be sick on the court, 100%.
Yeah, it makes sense. But I'm excited for the new, what is it? They're calling it now the remix edition jerseys, which should be coming out in November. It's supposed to be a throwback of things we've done in the past, whether it's an old school logo, an old school jersey. So I'm really excited to see what that looks like. And people on Twitter were talking about the coaching staff. And Anthony, you made me aware of this yesterday. The coaching staff yesterday was wearing the logo that it's behind Anthony right now. So that's interesting. I wonder if that's a little preview of what may come here in November. But I'm excited for that because, again, who doesn't like the old school Magic logo and throwback jerseys?
You can't go wrong with that. That's an easy win. That's a slam dunk.
So when I think about just branding in total, I think about the Celtics, that they haven't had a logo change in ever. I think about the Lakers, where they've pretty much stick to the exact same thing. I feel like there's certain teams with certain logos that shouldn't change. And I feel like the Orlando Magic have that, because there was a time frame where the Shaq and Penny eras, everyone was wearing the jerseys, everyone was wearing logos, celebrities wearing all the gear from the Orlando Magic. I feel like the minute that we changed that, it wasn't, the Magic weren't as cool as we used to be. Absolutely. Now it's just vintage, and that's it. So,
but now vintage is cool, which is a perfect time to bring that kind of thing back. It's kind of like, I'm a Miami Dolphins fan too, and the same kind of conversations circle around just bringing back those old school uniforms. People freak out whenever they wear them. And it's like, well, why don't you just wear them all the time? People like them that much. Then clearly you've hit on something. Make the fans are the ones that are buying up the gear. So give them what they want.
Yeah. If they do the remix, if you were to collide two uniforms in one, I would collide the Stars Tracy McGrady uniforms with any format of the pinstripes and just see what it looks like. It'd probably be a terrible idea, but those are my two favorite uniforms. I would definitely slam together.
Somebody that's listening is gonna put some graphic design work on that. I can see it. We'll get to see what it looks like.
Do it right now. Send it to me, and I'll make sure that it's everywhere. I'll post it everywhere that anyone would be willing to listen and grade and look at it. And then Brandon, final question. Outside of Orlando Magic, what is a team that you enjoy watching, that you like watching, their style of basketball?
I fell in love with the Phoenix Suns throughout the playoffs. I could not get enough of the way that they played. I loved the overall team aspect of the way that they went about the game. Chris Paul's an amazing leader. He's exactly what I hope Jalen Suggs turns into. Devin Booker, sensational. DeAndre Ayton came on. They had all these extra role pieces, and Jay Crowder and guys like every good NBA team needs a Jay Crowder type if you're going to hit the next level. So that team I fell in love with during the playoffs. In the regular season, and this isn't so much team-based, but I love watching Zion Williamson. So I try and catch every Pelicans game they throw at me. I'm on it because I just think he is just sensational to watch. He's not a perfect product yet, but man, he's just different.
I feel bad. I feel bad for Zion. I feel like every season it's the same thing. There's always a discussion of his weight. I saw a picture earlier today on social media where they posted a picture of his media day this year, and then a picture of his media day when he first got into the NBA. And he looked like he was way more in shape when he first got into the league compared to what he is now. And I just really hope that he can really have, a healthy season, because he's that guy's a way he's able to do. That dude's a monster.
Oh my God. I mean, the numbers he was putting up last year, I just felt like all season long, people were not appreciating the fact that this guy was putting up numbers equivalent to Shaq when Shaq was bursting onto the scene, except Shaq was so physically imposing, nobody could stop him. Zion is built differently. And I think too many people are wrapped up in this idea of, we found the next LeBron, or we expect you to be that, so show us that. Zion's not going to be LeBron. He's not going to be MJ. This isn't going to be a guy that single-handedly takes over a game, just move over teammates, and I got this. I think he can be a more exciting version of like Charles Barkley, or a more polished version of Sean Kemp, someone like that. So he can be sensational. He can be a Hall of Famer, but that doesn't mean that you're the guy who takes over the game. I just think we were too quick to go, because you're sensational, because you're so marketable, then you're going to be the next LeBron. Those were unfair expectations. And then I think when people see that that's not what he is, they're going to like, he's overrated. He's not. We just need to just judge him differently.
Now, the real question is, how long will he be in New Orleans?
Not long.
Not long at all. I don't see it. I don't see it happening.
And that's on them. I mean, it's just not
100%.
a well-run organization right now.
100%. Brandon, I appreciate you so much for joining us on this podcast. If you want to hear more of Brandon Kravitz, you can find him on In the OZone weekdays from 3 to 6 p.m. on 969 The Game. For those that want to continue following you, where can they find you on social media?
All over the place. I'm trying to take over the internet one day at a time. At Brandon Kravitz across all major platforms. Active on Twitter, Instagram if you want some family photos. I've got a blossoming TikTok channel, all of that. And my own personal podcast too. So outside of the show that I host from 3 to 6 p.m. every weekday on 96.9 The Game, I also host the Brandon Kravitz podcast, where I cover a different topic every single week, just something that's a little bit more evergreen for Orlando sports fans of all varieties, whether you're a Magic fan, a UCF fan, you like the Jags, the Bucks, the Dolphins, Gators, Knights. I think I already mentioned them, the Seminoles. Just try and cover it all. This is a very diverse sports fan that lives in this market. I've spent the last 10 years trying to figure them out, and now I'm trying to deliver as much content to them as I possibly can. So at Brandon Kravitz across the board, and you'll find me with ease.
Awesome. I love it. Brandon, thank you again. So much fun. And until next week, it's a wrap.
Thank you for listening to the OZone Podcast, the voice of Magic fans. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at the OZone Pod. And remember to subscribe and leave a 5-star review on all your favorite podcast listening platforms.